Uh, Coming to mains part, I think mains may there are three, four things. First, I think mains may you should have notes. Prelims you can go through without notes. Prelims is not that difficult in because see main difficulty in main difference in prelims and mains is prelims may uh, you don't have to write something. The content is in front of you. You have to guess. So the breadth is means the breadth of the knowledge is important here. You should know variety of things, and if you don't know quite a thing exactly, then your work is done because you have to see the options. Mains you have to know less content, but you have to know it verbatim because you have to write those. So you cannot quote the article wrong because that would be a disaster. So less content and more writing is needed. So how do we? Because when you go for prelims, there is a variety of content that you study, and most of that is not relatable to mains. In that sense, that most of that you cannot like in economy. If I would say the method of GDP in this, how do you calculate the GDP? That is has a very slight chances of coming in mains, but in prelims you have to go and study because they can ask you this method or that method. So in that way, I think mains has a lot more requirement to have notes, and the best way to prepare notes is syllabus wise. For I think syllabus wise, especially for the topics of GS2 like governance, poverty, hunger, vulnerable sections, and all those things, you can have your own notes ready. Also for this thing like the GS3 part, internal security, disaster management, environment is there, infrastructure, the things that are quite static in nature, you can have your notes once ready. It will take you one time effort, and post that you can supplement those with a current affair example that keep coming on. If there is a Naxal attack in some district in Chhattisgarh, or there is a insurgency operation going on in Myanmar, means the Indo-Myanmar border, so all those things you can keep on adding, but you need to have notes. And these notes also, the better you make the notes, the better you can revise them. And that clarity is also reflected in your answer ultimately. So that's about notes making. Secondly, talking about answer writing, I think answer writing is there are a couple of myths around answer writing, what to write, what not to write. Uh, I'll tell you few things that I have understood as a part of the preparation. Firstly, you should not start answer writing from day one. It doesn't carry any view or does not carry anything with it because until you have some maturity of knowledge, you cannot write a good answer. If you have to explain some economic problem in India, then if you don't know if it has its roots in the global financial, suppose you have to uh, talk about the NPA problem, then if you don't have this broader understanding that it was the global financial crisis of 2008 that was somehow responsible for NPA crisis in India, then I think you are not doing justice to the question because at the end, the examiner will expect this knowledge, this understanding, this depth from your answer. So I think maturity of the knowledge is important. And this maturity, I think at least takes 6 to 8 months. So 6 to 8 months is bare minimum where you will complete at least the basic part and you will have some idea of what's going on in current affairs. One thing in economy, just I remembered, you can also refer to economic survey here and budget, obviously. So these were survey is very important. I love this document of Indian economy. So maturity of knowledge is required for answer writing, and post that I think you should start slow. Start slow. When I mean is there are initiatives in across very various I think institute like Insights is also there. Baba is also doing it. They post questions on current affairs, and current affairs question are current affairs question are something that you will be reading in newspaper daily, and that will help you to write at least a initial answer. Because if you see the mains question, they are not directly current oriented. There will be hardly couple of questions that directly come from a specific current affair. Mostly the mains question in final exam are very broad based. You should have a very in-depth knowledge of the thing. What we say, you need to have a greater understanding of the things going around because you have to write multi-dimensional answers for every question. But to start slow, you can write current affair answers. For initially 1 month, you can write 2 answers daily. You can take your time. You can take 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Sorry, sorry. You can take 20, 25 minutes, and you should have that, develop this idea of structuring, introduction, body, conclusion, that we popularly call it. Once you are done with it, then I think you should, if you are post 6 to 8 months is this, and I think if you should prepare it, do this thing for around 1, 2 months, I think then you can go for the sectional test across coachings, whichever you find good. Sectional test you can do, and post that, when you do the sectional test, also start referring to UPSC PYQs and write, I think, write answers to them, or make template or whatever you do, and get it reviewed with your friends, or if you have some mentor, etc. Have it done. And I think where in between pre and mains, you should write a good number of tests. I think to me that number would go around 8, 12, I think, plus whatever you write for optional, that depends upon what optional you have, etc. But I think 12 GS tests is something you should write, for each, and obviously 4 essays. This is something I would suggest. And also do that exercise once, like 1 plus 2 plus 2. One day essay, 2 day GS 1 2, and means 1 day GS 1 2 and 1 day GS 3 4. Because that itself is a problem with mains, because if you are not accustomed to writing 3 hours continuously in 6 hours in a day, then I think your hand will not support you that day. So I think that's pretty much sums of the answer writing. If somebody has some specific question, I'll take later on. One more thing in mains is you should refer to toppers copies. I think if you refer to Shruti's copies, this year's topper, I was referring it to yesterday. I think she has given a lot of examples. I think everything in her copy is supported by an example. It's not just in ethics, because in ethics you have to write examples, but even in GS, in GS 1 2. So examples are important, and examples help in substantiating your point. Similarly, you can read other copy, like for Vikram's copy, 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏, if you would be knowing that guy. His copies are great for essays. Anudeep sir's copies are great. So I think all those copies you can refer to. There will be many other toppers whose copies you can refer. My copies are also available in forum if you want to refer to them. And thirdly, I think is feedback is important, because you cannot keep on chasing something without taking a feedback. The feedback can be from coaching institute, can be from someone who is your mentor, some of your senior who is in the services, or someone who has written mains or once or twice. So feedback is important, because until that you would not know what you have to correct, what you don't have to correct. And feedback also can be taken from the model answers, and feedback can also be taken from toppers copies initially, because initially there is a lot of scope of improvement, and I think you should start taking feedback initially, because once your habit develops in something, then it's very difficult to change it. So initially also, means from the initial days only, you should at least have your answers reviewed by someone, be it a mentor or someone, so that you don't do something that's erroneously wrong. Obviously, mains is what we popularly say as andhon mein kana raja. It's like you have to write, not write 20 very good answers. You have to write some average, some bad, some good answers, because it's impossible to write 20 very good answers there in that time constraint. But at least you should have your answer reviewed from day one, so that you don't develop any habit that's very antithetical to UPSC. So I think this pretty much covers up prelims and mains. Interview, if I would say interview, I think is very much a personal thing. I got 190 in interview. That is a good score this year. I think pretty good score this year, because this year 10 marks were on an average toned down in the interview. So interview, I think there are two things to that personality, which I think it's not possible to change, in my opinion. Uh, because it doesn't develop during UPSC preparation, it develops over years. It develops over 22, 23 years of what's your age right now. But I think there are some nuances that you can say, like the mannerism you can learn. How do you talk to the senior sitting in the board? You wish the lady member first. You don't sit down until you are asked to sit down. So all those things you can add on, but on a large, personality cannot be changed. But on the content side, you can definitely work. You can see the current affairs of those time going on between the mains and the interview. You can refer to the subjects, like if I had a job, then I had to study about computer science, the different things that are going on in IT around the world. Even I was asked a question about Elon Musk takeover of Twitter that was revoked yesterday. So all those things around your subjects, around your domain, you should be aware of. But uh, interview is nothing you can not do pretty much about, and it's also a bit later stage. Until that interview, reaching the interview stage, you will have a lot of knowledge. So you can tackle it afterwards also. One thing that I personally say in UPSC, one is this stage wise strategy and all those things, but one is the mindset that is, I think, important. And I with mindset, I would say there is this poem of Rabindranath Tagore, not exactly related to the context, but the idea is that when the mind is well without fear and the head held high, into that universe may my nation awake. So the idea is, from that I take from that you should not be fearful in this exam. See, you are not answerable to anyone in this world if you are giving this exam. It's your personal decision and it should be backed completely by you. If anybody XYZ says you cannot crack the exam, you don't have the credential, you are not from a tier one college, your credential till now 10th May you got 60%, how will you clear UPSC? That doesn't matter. One line that's my quote for this exam is, there is no, they properly say there is no shortcut to success, but I say UPSC is the shortest way to success, because this exam doesn't inquire what you got in this semester, what you got in that semester, how many backs you had, were you addicted to something or not, what was your basic education, are you from English medium, Hindi medium. If you have the capacity to clear the exam, read it, go through all the stages, then you are most welcome. So I think that's one mindset you should have. Be confident, because this preparation, people start with a lot of vigor, but this preparation drains you a lot, because there are multiple stages. You will fail in prelims. People do fail in prelims multiple times. Will fail in main someday. So have that mindset. Okay, why did I come to the preparation? Have that goal right in your head. And one thing I would say with mindset is, there is a kind of people being aloof of the world. Like people are like, uh, man, we have to leave Instagram, we have to leave WhatsApp, we have to leave all social media. Don't do that. Do it in a limited sense. I myself, I am very much interested in traveling, and in the years of preparation, 2 3 years of preparation, I would have traveled a lot, at least 10 to 15 destinations that I can remember of. Travel between pre and mains, after mains, but justify. If you have worked hard, then nobody can ask you why are you traveling, because you have studied 1 hour extra every day for last 1 month to get this time out for traveling for the next 4 5 days. So have your mindset clear. Be honest to yourself. Don't cheat anyone, because you will be cheating ultimately yourself in the exam. So if you have this correct mindset of being confident, not being fearful, and right attitude, I think pretty much this exam is crackable for everyone, no matter where you come from. I think that was my take on the exam. I'll go with some questions, right? Uh, I'll start with the Ashwini question. Sir, congratulations. Please guide how to articulate answer writing and presentation skills. See, one thing is, articulation is something I think. See, again, there are a lot of things that somebody learns from their childhood. If I would to say, if you say, see Vikram Grewal's essay, I think a regular candidate cannot write the essay that VG writes, because he has written books. So a person who has written books, you cannot compete with him on writing essays. But then definitely you can do things that are in the zone of a regular candidate. He got, I think, 164 in the essay, but you can at least target 135, 140, because that is most of the people do score if they are writing good essays, and that does not require very, I would say, writing style of a writer or a literary writing style. So firstly, set a benchmark for yourself for answer writing. There are people who are genuinely good at answer writing because of their skill set that they had developed over the years. Somebody might be a a writer in their college magazine or something, so they might have that artistic skill ready with them, but that can be conquered with a bit more practice. So I would say in the terms of articulation, there are few more things if I would add here on the in the terms of articulation, I would say there are four more things. There are some keywords that are for every subject. Like for if I say these PRIs, then there is word called democratic decentralization. That you can find. This word is mentioned multiple time in the ARC report. For ethics, we have this word called compassionate capitalism. So, like these keywords, they help you to express larger, means larger, say, weight to your words is added, and at the same time, you are writing less. And the second part of the articulation is basically diagram flowchart that you can do. I think one I think that is misconception is writing very heavy language helps. That doesn't help. Write simple sentences. You write that uh, a person who is basically educated, because see, the examiners who check your copies are, they are knowledgeable people, but they are not guys who are reading current affair like you day in day out. They have broad understanding of the things. They don't read the Hindu, the Indian Express. He might be reading Times of India. He might be reading Indian Express. He might be reading a local newspaper in Hindi. You don't know. So write simple, write something that makes sense, that is logical. If you write simple logical things, then I think that pretty much sums your articulation. And presentation, I think, can be improved with diagram, flow charts. You need to quote committees. Quotes are there, committee reports, and as much as possible, quote government data, Niti Aayog, ARCs, and all those things. That keeps a lot of check on the articulation. And I think if you are able to do that, then I think this is much you can do that. You cannot do more than this in 3 hours writing 20 questions, because that's, if you write one better answer, you get 1 marks extra. But on the pretext of it, if you are completely ignoring one question, then you are on a net losing 3-4 marks. So don't try to overdo things, but write simple things, and that pretty much works. What was your revision strategy, and did you start proper answer writing after preparing notes? Revision strategy, I am mostly person who makes notes. I did not make notes for books like, say, Spectrum, etc., which are to be studied multiple times. But for things like art and culture, I did make notes. For modern history, I had some notes for some part. For post Gandhian era, I think I did not had notes, but before that, I had some notes, because 1857 revolts, etc., that all those things can be covered in one side of an A4. Because if you see revolt of 1857, especially for mains, then there are only few things that can be asked. What were the causes of the revolt? What were the consequences? Who were the main participants? So that all can be covered in one A4. Like what were the contribution of moderates, major moderates, the Surat split, all those things can be covered pretty much easily. But I think post Gandhian era, I did not make notes pretty much. That was about what was the question initially? And no, as I said, I did notes making is not a one-time job that you make notes and you stop. Obviously, you will have to do additions to it. You will have to do additions for the current affair example, something you find good in some answer copy of the topper, something you find good in the coaching solutions. So you keep on updating your notes. Specifically in successive attempts, you have to update your notes. But that what I said, that when you start reading current affairs for about 6-8 months, then you can start writing for the at least the current affair question, something that is in the news. Like currently there is this electric vehicle catching fire is something that is in the news. So you can write some question on the electric vehicle, how electric vehicles are a solution to urban mobility, etc. So you can do those things. So it's not that obviously you should write, I think, the coaching test or the sectional test after you have notes. Sorry, guys. But basic answer writing 1-2 question, you can start with the mean the current affair things. यार नीति आयोग दिस आई थिंक इंडिया एट 75 के नोट्स में पढ़े ही थे. I think there is a very good presentation available in the website of Niti Aayog that is 75. And I think it's barely a presentation of 6 8 pages. I used to read it. It basically has goals that are set for Indian economy, means India as a general across the different dimension, be it industry, education, health, etc. So you can refer to that document. I think you can also find summary. But second ARC, I think you should read it, some summary and make notes even out of that summary. So that my entire second ARC notes are like 4 5 pages. So you can take out the keywords from them, some major agenda, some major things, and that will cover all those docs. See, the idea of docs is not to code them like you are writing an exam on that doc. It's only if you quote Niti Aayog at the rate 75 some 3 4 times in a paper, then that's pretty much enough. So you don't have to very much be into those documents. You have to have general idea what the document says so that you can at least know, okay, if in some conclusion you can say that, okay, Niti Aayog at the rate 75 says this. So that way you have to use those documents. 1 plus 2 didn't get it. 1 plus 2 is one day you have to write essay. Next day you have to write GS1, GS2. Next day you have to write GS3, GS4. So that's what one. You have to do practice this way before the final means. Yeah, management of time with job is something that I can comment on because I had done my preparation this time across jobs. So what I did was I had this 1 year coverage before in the time I was not working from November 2019 till December 2020. I was not working. So I had prepared 1 year extensively. So I had basic notes ready, basic understanding of all the subjects, basic understanding of current affairs. What are the major organization? Okay, so if I know the Quad summit is being held, then I have a context to it. Okay, Quad is a military grouping involving 4 nations. What is the area of convergence of Quad? What are the major challenges to Quad? What is the China's view on Quad? China calls it an Asian NATO and all those things. So that 1 year preparation helped me to grasp the things easily. My general idea was I should study 3 4 hours before joining the company. I used to study current affairs with the website of different coaching institute during my job time, like for 6 8 hours that I used to work. And post that 1 2 hours, 1 to maximum 2 hours, I used to give post job. Before pre and after pre, if your organization gives you holiday, that's nothing better than that. You can take, I think, a week holiday before pre, and similarly for mains. But if it doesn't give holiday, then I think you don't have much to do, and that's where your notes come into picture. If you have some good notes prepared, then you can revise it. I did not. I think I took only a day off before prelims, and for the mains also, I just took that week off that in which the mains is to be written. Apart from that, I did not take any holidays. So I think if you have good notes ready, then your job is done. But I think for someone preparing with job, notes are mandatory because you don't have that liberty with time. So you have to have short, concise things, and somebody with job, you need to give up on some things. Like in this attempt, the last attempt, this attempt I could not study anything because of the results. But in the last attempt, when I was giving prelims, then I made a fair choice of things that I am going to leave that did not were not appearing with, like this part of history that's before the revolt of 1857, the European conquering India, the Portuguese coming, the Dutch coming, and all those things. I did not study because I thought that maximum one question will come and this revision will take me a lot of time. So, and luckily, fortunately, that nothing came from that section. So I think you have to take that gamble if you are working candidate. How to do time management for working, and that's what I told. You have to squeeze time in between. You have to have dedicated time before job starts and after job starts, and that's philosophical essay strategy did something. Financial advantage is there, and I think to me that's always there. That there is nothing, there is no other job in India that will give you, I think, something like 2.5 lakhs working for 6 and 8 hours in an AC room. But then it comes down to what you want from. See, any job that you do in life, you have to do it for 30-35 years. You have to keep that in mind. Money can be a motivator for a small amount of time. See, if I, frankly speaking, when I joined in 27 until 2018, I had nothing in my bank balance because lived kind of very, like, I'll spend a lot of money. I enjoyed a lot. I was living in Delhi NCR, so I went to Noida, Gurgaon, CP, all those places, and that enjoyment has its limits. That cannot be a motivator for you to work 30 years in life. So money is not as strong a motivator as is the work satisfaction. If you simply compare that post some time in life, say after retirement, you will realize, okay, for me, building a school at a tribal place was a more bigger achievement than earning a package of 1 crore or 2 crore at Facebook. So I think that choice you have to take with yourself. And most of my friends are at MNCs, none mostly. I think hardly two of my friends are in India, and most of them are in US, placed in biggest of MNCs, either Facebook or Google or Amazon, or one of them is in Twitter. So to me, that was never a motivator. They had their motivation there, they went there, and we still have conversation around this. But I think that boils down to what motivates you, and I think that motivation is what sustains you in the exam also. Philosophical essay strategy, I think this is the last question. The time is going to be over. Philosophical strategy is, see, strategy for essay, I'll just take 2 minutes more and I'll say essay. I think one thing that I always do with essay is talk with the topic. Like, I will just take an example. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. This was, I think, 2019. So then you talk to is what is simplicity, what is sophistication, how people around the scholars have defined simplicity, what is simplicity for Buddha, what is simplicity for Gandhi, what is simplicity for you, what is sophistication, why the modern capitalistic class is so sophisticated, why we have not been able to be like what Gandhi says, simple living, high thinking, why that is not possible currently in this world which has been so much driven by capitalism, modernism, the Western thoughts, hedonism. So that's how you approach a topic. Obviously, essay is a different thing. You have to have a very good introduction. So you can have a good introduction. Like I'll tell you an example. There was this essay that came there. I think, what is research a blind date with knowledge? This was an essay this time in the section B. And what is research a blind date with knowledge? I started with, I think, this anecdote that this guy Vasco da Gama traveled and he started for India from Europe and went on to discover America. So I started with that research involves blind date with knowledge. You start for something, you keep on finding something. One other example can be the Rutherford experiment. He went for the nucleus, he discovered, I think, electron or something, or he went for the electron and discovered nucleus, whatever the case was. So I think you have to have a good introduction, a connect that makes with the topic, and talk a lot to the topic, bring out dimension from society, scholars, religion. That's how you approach topics from philosophical essays. You have to dig out the dimensions from across the world. Thank you. I think there are no more questions now. And I think time is also going to be over. So thank you guys. I think this helps you.
सर एक डाउट था।
हाँ भाई जल्दी।
सर जैसे जो डेली आंसर राइटिंग या कुछ आंसर राइटिंग का रहता है, तो सर उसका जो क्वेश्चन आता है उसको लिखने के पहले हम लोग को उसके बारे में थोड़ा पढ़ लेना चाहिए कि अपना एग्जिस्टिंग नॉलेज
पढ़ लो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं, इनिशियली पढ़ लो। See, currently to connect with me, I don't have a Telegram channel right now. I was thinking of making, but I have to give the mains again. So I don't have a Telegram channel. I'll write a blog and Telegram channel later after mains. but you can connect with me on here on Instagram. I reply, I open Telegram once a day, so I can reply to you here if you have some doubt. This is my handle, Pantashu95. I'll type in the chat also. You can connect here for any doubt. I can resolve. I might have less time during these 2 months because the mains is there. But post that you can ask me. I reply most of the doubts, and I'll be writing a blog once the mains gets over so that people on large benefit.
I should also share this document with me so that I can share on the group.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
So, thanks to all for your patience and presence, and thanks to Ashu for giving your valuable time. Should I end
For
this?
consolidating material, make notes. That's the only thing how you consolidate the material. There is nothing rocket science about it. You have to make notes. That's how the materials get consolidated. Until you have a base material on which you are adding things, you cannot consolidate your notes ever. So have a base material from any coaching or whatever, your coaching notes, your self notes, and add things to that. That's how you consolidate the material.
Should I conclude the session?
Yeah, you can conclude the session.
Okay. So thank you so much, Ashu, for your valuable time and guidance. We are ending this session now.